So how does one go about we talked about developing that celebrity mindset. We're just having a great conversation. I hate that we caught it off camera. Mr. Clint here was just going all in.
I don't know if I'll be able to say any of it again,
But we were talking about becoming a celebrity, basically. Clint Arthur, you've gone from a taxi cab driver up to celebrity status. So tell me how you got there and how can I reach that?
Look, I went from being less than nobody, right? Because when you're a taxi driver, you're not even anybody. You're nobody. You usually are referred to as driver, right? And what I tell a lot of my students is, if you're not talking to a person who introduces themselves by a name, then you're talking to a nobody. And nobody's can't book you on TV. Nobody's can't hire you to speak. Nobody's can't connect you with celebrities. Nobody's are not going to give you awards. They're not going to make you a bestseller. If you want to accomplish anything in this life, you have to interact with people who are somebody. And if you want to be somebody, then first of all, you always have to use your full name.
Right.
Because unless you introduce yourself as somebody, then you're nobody. So what we were talking about is how do I make you? You're a farm to table expert. You consult with restaurants. You've worked in Michelin star restaurants. You understand. See, what is a Michelin star restaurant? A Michelin star restaurant is an award-winning restaurant, essentially.
Right. Yeah.
So, right. But that's only one.
Tough to get.
But
and
that's
not something that we even held for very long because the standard is so high.
Hey, man, I get it. Okay. And
it's very tough.
I've had 3 Michelin star chefs as clients, numerous. Okay. I've worked with the best chefs in the world. And I'll tell you what, the Michelin star is only part of it. And unless you have all of it, it's hard to maintain the Michelin star. Like the chef who got that Michelin star, he wasn't famous, was he?
No, he worked his butt off. His entire focus was getting that Michelin.
Yeah, I understand.
I mean, he doesn't have, personal relationships get in the way when it comes to getting those Michelins. Well, everything's about chasing that star.
Think of it this way. If he was Bobby Flay, it would have been a lot harder for them to take that star away from him.
Right. Yeah.
But because he was nobody, he just got dropped.
Yeah.
Okay. And that should illustrate to you the power of celebrity, because the Michelin star is all based on perception.
Right.
It's one reviewer's perception of an experience at a restaurant. And it has been proven over and over again that great marketing increases the satisfaction that the customer has in the experience. If you go in there expecting to have a great experience, you are more likely to have a great experience. And therefore, by not becoming famous, that chef shot himself in the foot. Once he won his Michelin star, he should have become the most, what town was that in?
That's in, we were south of Atlanta. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to throw him under the bus.
The most famous chef in the state of Georgia. And if he had done that, then he could have possibly parlayed that into a regional James Beard Award. See what I mean? Now it's becoming harder and harder to drop that star. And check this out. Remember how hard you worked when you guys got that Michelin star.
Yes.
You really came in like jazzed to go to work every day.
It was everything. I mean, you came in and you volunteered extra hours. You were a part of a mission.
Because when you work for a celebrity, you are more enthusiastic in your work.
You are.
Okay.
For sure.
And all he had was a little tiny piece of celebrity, one single award. But he didn't understand that that's not enough. There are other things you can and need to do in order to cement your status as a celebrity in the eyes of customers and prospects. And I got news for you. When you are an employee of a restaurant or any company, you're a customer of that celebrity's brand.
Right.
You're buying into it with your heart and soul. Yeah, you're getting a paycheck, but you're not working in a restaurant for the paycheck most of the time. Yeah,
No,
you
it's
got to
it's
survive,
not that very well paying. So I mean,
right?
you're definitely in it for the experience. You're in there to learn, and you're definitely there to be a part of. I would say like being a part of that kitchen was about being a part of the legacy. The same sourdough batches for bread are still being used today that I helped create, 17 years ago. There's, several different pieces. I helped hang the first shelves, make the first stock. So there's kind of like, even today, there's this, I would say this history connection that you still feel with that kitchen, though you were not in there. That chef is long gone. My crew, for the most part, is all long gone. We actually still have one or two people on staff there that I worked with, but you're part of this legacy that was this restaurant.
You're part of the whole, you're right, the legacy, and the customers are part of the legacy. The staff is part of the legacy. The physical plant is part of everything that goes into it. But you know what else is part of the legacy? The cookbook is part of the legacy. Did the guy ever publish a cookbook?
No.
See, that's a missing piece of the legacy. And that's one of the reasons why he lost his star.
Yeah.
Because he didn't embrace the full thing. See, I had the same kind of experience. I won an award. One of my mentors was a direct marketing living legend. He was a living legend of entrepreneurial marketing. His name is Dan Kennedy. And I was his information marketer of the year. And I thought when I won that award, all my problems would be over. I'd have customers lined up out the door. I'd be able to charge all the money in the world, and I would never have to worry again because this was a very prestigious award in
Right.
my industry. And you know what? What I found was that the award was only a piece of marketing that I could use as part of my overall marketing program. It was just one little piece. And that if I didn't use it, it would fall away in value. But if I did use it, I could make something out of it. That's
Right.
the same exact thing with this Michelin star. This guy thought, wow, I got my Michelin star. All my problems are over. Wrong. Because awards are only one part of being a celebrity in the eyes of customers and prospects. And if you want to have the highest fees, if you want to have the clients you want to have, if
Right.
you want to have a list of customers and prospects that you can keep mining for years and years so that some of the burden of marketing and sales is taken off you because you have this loyal herd of people who look up to you as being somebody super special that they're happy to pay a lot of money to, then you need to do all the things that celebrity entrepreneurs do. And you need to position yourself as a celebrity entrepreneur in the eyes of customers and prospects. I'm not saying you're going to be Bobby Flay. You're never going to be Bobby Flay. Bobby Flay is a real celebrity.
Yeah.
He is. You're never going to be Gordon Ramsay. You're never going to be George Clooney or Madonna or Lady Gaga. Those are actual celebrities. I don't have to explain who those people are to anybody. But if you think about Tony Robbins, do you know who Tony Robbins is?
Yeah, he's the author of was that Rich Dad Poor Dad?
No, that's Robert Kiyosaki.
Ah,
Okay. You don't know who Tony Robbins is.
I feel like I'm
Tony
gonna
Robbins is the author of Awaken the Giant Within.
Oh
He
yes.
is that seminar guy who had infomercials for decades. And, you know, when Gorbachev needs a coach, I'm the one who gets the call. When Tiger Woods needs a coach, I'm the one who gets the call. That's Tony Robbins, right? And maybe you recognize him by his face. I got a picture with Tony here someplace. But it's good that you don't know who he is because a lot of people do. But most people don't. Like, you must not go to a lot of self-help seminars, do you?
No, I do not.
See?
I've been on this 1 year, so I went through a big transition about a year ago. I was working at a 5-diamond hotel here in Jackson and kind of went through a very dark place and basically almost committed suicide. And I decided that day that I was going to change my life, change everything on what I was doing, how I was going to live my life. I was no longer going to, work in a place where I was, 90 plus hours a week, the pressure that I was having. I have 6 kids, so I wasn't getting family time. So I made a big transition about a year ago. So I'm kind of new into the world of self-help. I mean, I read a lot of books, but that's kind of my.
Okay. Well, I, I get it, because the only way you would know who Tony Robbins is if you were into self-help seminars, because he's like the top guru of all self-help seminars.
He's
That's
the
who he
Tiger
is.
Woods of seminars.
Yeah. Yeah, he is the Tiger Woods of seminars. And here's a picture with me and Tony, okay?
Okay.
When I was the host of his 60th birthday party in Los Angeles. And, the kind of people that were there were Dr. Oz and Paris Hilton and Pitbull. Okay, but a lot of people know who he is, who are into self-improvement and who listen to seminars or who listen to podcasts. But if you don't know who he is, then he's nobody. See, now I've paid Tony many, many, many thousands of dollars because he's a super special person in my life. I look up to him because he's not George Clooney, he's Tony Robbins.
Right.
And in my world, Tony Robbins is a very big somebody. All my clients think that Tony Robbins is a very big somebody, but you have no idea who he is. And that's what a celebrity entrepreneur is. See, I was talking to you earlier about this farm to table vegetable guy named Farmer Jones, and he is a celebrity entrepreneur to his clients, but not even as much as Tony Robbins. There's varying degrees of being a celebrity in the eyes of your customers and prospects. Tony Robbins is about as famous as you can get while still being a complete nobody, as you have proven on this show. And I'm telling you, and I am 1/1000th as famous as Tony Robbins. And yet, to my clients and prospects, I'm a very special person and they pay me a lot of money. And I mean, to come to my seminars is $3,000, $5,000, $10,000, $25,000. That's what it costs to come to my events. And who am I? I'm 1/1000th as famous as Tony, and he's a nobody. And that's the power of celebrity entrepreneurship.
So how do we build up that celebrity status? Like, what is there like a game plan? Is there is there like a outline that you got to do? Like, what was your outline for you, and what works? How do you establish yourself in that way?
It took me more than 10 years to figure this stuff out. Okay. And I started out by going on TV news and talk show interviews on local TV stations around the country, not Good Morning America.
Right.
I gave up all hope of going on Good Morning America or the Today Show. I gave it all up because for me, I'm a middle-aged white guy that nobody's ever heard of. I got self-published books that very few people have ever bought. I'm not a celebrity. I'm not a politician. That's what my publicist told me. And I paid her a lot of money and I trusted her opinion. And she said, you got to go on little tiny shows around the country, not in your own hometown. You want to wait to go on in your hometown until you're great.
Right.
And the only way you can become great is by going on lots of shows all around the country, talking about your expertise. Now, how do you get on these shows? Well, I had a book that I had written about what I learned at the Wharton Business School. That was something. This was way before The Apprentice even was as big a deal as it was, before Donald Trump made the Wharton Business School as famous as he made it. And it's still not like Harvard. It's not like, a famous place. It's only mildly known because of Donald Trump. But in any case, I had a book.
Okay.
And it's a very important step is to have a book. I asked you, did your 1-star Michelin chef write a book? You said no. See, he dropped that out. He thought his problems were all over when he won the award, but an award is just a piece of what celebrities use for their marketing so that they can be perceived as being somebody very special. TV is another piece. TV is the the essential piece, because it's the hardest.
Right.
Actually, the hardest. I had to pay $6,000 for my first 4 TV appearances, and they all sucked.
Oh, what made them suck?
I sucked. I was trying to be cool, and if you try to be cool, you look like a fool.
You got to be authentic. You got to be
It's not,
authentic in who you are, and
it's not about being authentic. It really isn't about being authentic. That's what everybody says. Oh, it's about authenticity. You know what? Nothing could be further from the truth on TV, because TV is a completely inauthentic situation.
that's a good point. That's a valid point.
You can't.
Nothing's real. Nothing.
You can't be authentic in a set. It's fake. The whole thing is fake. You're sitting in a fake living room with 1,000 lights in the ceiling and 10 cameras and 100 people watching. That's not real.
Yeah.
But you have to seem authentic. And that's a completely different skill. And you have to know how to do that. And the only way to do that is by going on lots of TV shows so that you can learn how to come off good on TV.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I'll say I've spent a little bit of time on local news. We had as part of our marketing for one of the restaurant groups that I worked for, they put us out on the local news basically pimped us out for a news bit every 3 months. And it was the first time you go up there, you kind of have that, what's that Talladega Nights moment where he's like, I don't know what to do with my hands. Like you kind of have that moment of you're not used to, you don't realize how much of that stuff is green screen. And that's what threw me off. You imagine these different things of what's actually behind them is not at all what's there.
All right, now I'm going to ask you a hard question, Jonathan Boyd. How many of those appearances do you have the videos of?
I have saved. I have only 2 of the 6. That's something that I've tried to go back and do. I've asked the local news for it.
At least you got a couple. Did you put them on your YouTube channel?
I have not. Not.
I've done 126 TV appearances, I think, or 128, one of the two. And I have most of them on my media page of my website, clintarthur.tv. That's one of my many websites. I got a lot of websites. clintarthur.tv. But, if you go to YouTube and you type in Clint Arthur, celebrity entrepreneur, you'll find all my many thousands of videos that I have on YouTube. And you have to get good at that. That's part of it. What else can you do? You need to be a speaker.
Right.
I mean, I've had the great privilege to have Oprah as one of my mentors.
Wow.
And I saw her speak at the Barclays Center Arena in Brooklyn for like 13,000 people, telling her story. Oprah's parents met one single time under an oak tree. And from that one meeting, Oprah Winfrey was born.
Wow.
Yeah. That was one of the most moving stories I've ever heard. And you need to be a great storyteller. This is part of it, because that's all people really care about is stories. Like I told you the story about Jean-Louis Paladin and how he cultivated the purveyors of his things that he needed, the lamb purveyor, the vegetable purveyor. And these people achieved like cult-like status because they were Jean-Louis Paladin's purveyors and suppliers. And they rode off that for decades because he was such the legendary Michelin star chef in his time. And, unfortunately, I've never had a break like that. I had to become a celebrity entrepreneur by utilizing these celebrity entrepreneurship tactics that we've been talking about here in this interview.
I enjoy that. So when it comes to developing these things now, did you go through a publicist? Was it one of those things where you just kind of went just trial and error? Explain to me that story of how it went from taxi driver to entrepreneur celebrity.
Okay. I went to the chiropractor, and said, what's wrong with you? I said, my knees are all screwed up. He goes, well, have you tried healing your knees with raw nutrition? I said, what are you talking about? He goes, well, have you read this book, We Want to Live Free from Disease by Algenis Vanderplanets? I'm like, no, what's that? He shows me the book. I flip to an open page, and it says, just by accident, it says, if your hair is thinning or your knees are weak or your legs feel like they're going to give out from under you, you are suffering from a thyroid deficiency. And the remedy would be partially raw clams, raw oysters, and raw scallops from the sea.
Okay.
And those are my favorite foods. And I was like, wow, those are my favorite foods, but I'm a taxi driver. I have been eating Whopper Juniors.
That's kind of my world lately, it feels like.
Right?
Yeah.
My idea of a great meal was 2 Whopper Juniors for 99 cents each and a 6-pack of Miller Lite bottles in long necks. That was my idea of a great meal. And I thought, wow, if I invest money in my favorite foods, that's going to heal my knees. So I read the whole book, and there's all these different remedies about the raw primal diet. And most of these remedies to cure whatever your ailments were involved raw meat, raw milk, raw eggs, raw honey, and raw butter.
Yeah.
And there was no raw butter. And my girlfriend was a Russian prostitute at the time. And I said, she read the book and she goes, we need the butter. We need the butter. And I started calling farms and creameries and dairies all around the country. Do you have any raw butter? What are you, crazy? Raw butter? That's illegal. That's dangerous.
Unfortunately.
Don't call here. I made 152 phone calls before I finally talked this lady into making me a batch of butter from her 50 cows that she had without pasteurizing the milk first. But I had to get it off the farm immediately. Make sure you have somebody come and pick it up right away. You got to pay me more. You got to pay me in advance, and you got to get it out of here as soon as I'm done. And so one day I come back to my boat where I'm living in Marina Del Rey because that's the cheapest way to survive. And there's a box on the back of the boat. I'd forgotten all about it. I open it up and there's 40 pounds of raw butter. And I call the chiropractor. I go, guess what? I got 40 pounds of raw butter on my boat right now. He goes, give me some, bring me some. So I bring him 1 pound in a 1 pound deli container and he sticks his finger in. Yep, that's raw butter. All right. Sell me this one. And I'm like, all right, what do you want to pay? He goes, I don't know. What do you want? And I go, I don't know, $10. And that's how I got into selling butter.
Wow.
That's how I got. Next thing I know, Charlie Trotter calls me up. You ever hear of him?
Oh, I know Charlie Trotter.
I had the table butter at the Charlie Trotter restaurant for 12 years. That butter.
Wow.
Okay, that's how I got into gourmet food. That's how I became the judge of battled butter on Iron Chef America.
Now, how did you get away with? Now, did they ever find? Was there a loophole that you used to sell that butter?
No, man. I illegally shipped raw butter all over the country.
See, we'll say that when we have products like that, like we have lots of raw milk, we have dairy goats, so we sell it and we package it as animal food. Yeah. And now I know for sure that's not what it's getting used to, but that's how I sell it.
Well, that's not what I did. I just sold it the way I did. And I became the largest shipper by weight of the FedEx station in Marina Del Rey, California. I was shipping so much butter in and out.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's such a flavor difference though between the two.
Hey man, it's an amazing product, and butter been very, very good to me. I had a great run with butter, and I still have clients at Bellagio. At one time I had every fine dining restaurant at Bellagio as my client. All bread at Bellagio was buttered with 5-star butter.
Wow.
Yeah, for a long time. It was an amazing thing. But I showed the clips. Okay, then I wrote a book. Once I became successful as a businessman, I got out of taxi driving. I had 5-star butter. I was the king of butter in Las Vegas, Nevada. I had everything at Bellagio, everything at the Wynn, everything at Encore, etc. And Every top restaurant was my client. And I wrote a book, What They Teach You at the Wharton Business School, about the things I learned at the Wharton Business School that helped me to become successful once I stopped trying to be a screenwriter and a movie star and focused on making money. And that's the book that I started publicizing on TV. And I showed the first 4 appearances to my wife. And I said, what do you think? And she said, I think you suck. And I said, I think you're right. I better do a lot more appearances before
Right.
I'm ever going to get good enough to achieve my goal, which is going on the Today Show. So I'm going to hire this lady to book me on 10 more shows. That was going to be $15,000. And my wife goes, whoa, whoa, whoa. Why do you keep paying this lady? Why don't you just book yourself on TV? And I'm like, how do you book yourself on TV? But it was an interesting idea. And I woke up at 2:30 in the morning that night, and I went up to my office upstairs in the house that I had built us in the Hollywood Hills. And I went on Google and I started searching for TV stations in the city where Southwest Airlines would fly so I could fly there cheap. And people just started slamming phones down in my ear. Don't call us, we'll call you. You know, not interested. How do you book yourself on TV? It took me 9.5 weeks to figure that out before I got the first TV producer to say, okay, why don't you come in like in 6 weeks from now? And I'm like, okay, what day? And she's like, this day. And I'm like, okay, great. Send me the studio address and the time you want me there and I'll be there. And it was a lot of work to make that happen. But man, once I booked my first show, it was like catching a fish because I got a $1,500 prize basically to go on TV without having to pay the publicist. So the first year I booked 7 and my second year I booked 20 more. My 32nd TV appearance was in NBC New York, the #1 market. And for my 57th TV appearance, Brooke Shields and Willie Geist interviewed me on the Today Show. And Brooke Shields goes, wow, Clint, you know, you talk a lot about being comfortable outside of your comfort zone. And I said, yeah, life begins where your comfort zone ends. And she goes, but that sounds scary. And I said, when it's scary is when it's great. And I never said that before. I never thought that before. But you know what? It's really become one of my guiding mantras because I've done a lot of scary stuff way out of my comfort zone. And the scarier it's been, the greater the triumph has been. Like my favorite quote from General George S. Patton, accept the challenges so that you can feel the exhilaration of victory, because that's how you come alive. And that's when it's scary is when it's great.
The comfortable life, I feel like, you'll always be working for the man if you're living the comfortable life. There is no such thing as living a rich, fulfilled life where you feel, how do I say this in the proper way here? There's no way for you to live your personal destiny if you're always working under someone else. That's right. There is a certain point where you've got to put yourself out there. You've got to change the paradigm of what's going on and develop you instead of worrying about making $1 million for someone else. And that's kind of been a big thing for me in the last year, is that I recognize that I've spent my last 20 years making someone else rich. I have never at any point in time been like, how am I going to develop me? Not just me as in money, but me as in my personal life, my relationships, my spiritual life, my physical life, because I was 65 pounds heavier and out of breath by just walking to the mailbox. How am I developing myself? And I think to do anything that's great has to be uncomfortable.
You're kind of right. Okay. But it's more than just that. It is really about doing what we talked about earlier, which is becoming your authentic self. And I said going on TV is not an authentic thing. It's not. But what you have to find is, what is that unique thing in you that you can bring to the world so that you can be the only one in the world who does that.
Right.
So, for example, I don't know if you know who this guy is, but I went all the way to his restaurant in Leon, Spain.
Okay.
It's called Bodega del Capricho, and it's the best steakhouse in the world. They don't serve beef, they serve oxen.
Very nice.
And this guy has been in movies. Like there was a movie on Netflix that I watched many years ago about steak. And he
Yes.
was the #1 top steak restaurant in the world. And he's been written up in magazines and newspapers around the world. And I just shot a little documentary about my experience traveling all the way from Acapulco, Mexico to Leon, Spain to go to this restaurant for dinner on New Year's Eve. And we got to meet the chef and go see the cows. And I talked to him at length about how do you become the best steak in the world? And how did he do that? Did somebody mentor him? He had to invent it all. He has oxen. He keeps his oxen a minimum of 8 years before he sacrifices them.
Wow.
Some of them he'll keep 18 years.
It's almost the opposite of beef programs here in the United States.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. It's the opposite. And a lot of times, in order to be who you need to be, you have to do stuff that's the opposite of what people are doing. I utilize a lot of old school techniques in my celebrity entrepreneurship training and implementation programs that I offer to authors, speakers, coaches, experts of every kind. It's not about digital marketing. It's about creating old school stuff, the same stuff that celebrity entrepreneurs have been using for decades. Tony Robbins been making money off this stuff for 40 years. I've been doing it for 12 years now. And this stuff is not going to go away. This is tried and true stuff that all celebrity entrepreneurs do. Awards, TV, speaking at very important places, and others. And it's the opposite of what's in vogue right now. And that's how you know that it's good.
So how, when it comes to, so we talked about me and being a chef and farm the table. How does someone find that niche within them? How do they discover what is unique about them? Like say you have a customer or a client who comes to you and they say, I want to be,
that's a great question.
How do you develop that and understand what that is that make you special?
I get that a lot. Like, can you give me a tagline, or can you help me with a good costume, or can you help me with my messaging? And look, I will help with messaging and I do help with taglines, but sometimes it comes right away. And other times it takes me more time with people, because the more I get to know you, the more I can help you. So for example, this one girl came to me and I said, well, what do you do? She goes, I do hair extensions. I'm like, okay, you're a hair extensions expert. It only came out like more than a year later, after she had come to 3 of my seminars, that she wasn't just a hair extensions expert. Some of her clients were Miss California, Miss Beverly Hills, Miss Washington State. Are those hair extensions or are those beauty queens? Is she a hair extensions expert or is she a beauty expert? And when I identified, oh, you're not a hair extensions expert, you're a beauty expert. Now her TV segment changed from mistakes to avoid when you get hair extensions to beauty queen secrets every girl needs to know.
That's amazing.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, how does one do it? It has to come out. Like for a long time, I would make videos, and at the end of the video, I would say, and I am looking forward to seeing you on television. Now that came out in the process of me making 1,000 videos.
Right.
And posting them on YouTube, talking about different ideas. And all of it always wrapping back to TV, because that's all I knew in those days. For the first like 4 years of trying to be a celebrity, all I knew was to go on TV and to win awards, because I had won an award. I didn't know to pursue other awards. I only knew, well, I had this award and I go on TV. That's all I knew how to do. Then I started listening to my other mentors, and I've invested a lot of time and money in mentors. I've studied with them all. In addition to going to one of the best business schools in the world, I've invested money in mentors in the real world who are real hands-on entrepreneurial marketers And I've paid attention and gone to their seminars over. One guy I went to a seminar 10 times. My other main mentor, Dan Kennedy, I've gone to countless seminars of his in Cleveland, Ohio. That's how you know how dedicated I am. And I pay attention and listen to them saying the same things over and over and over. And why are they saying it that way? Why are they saying that? And I came up with this idea of $1 million positioning statement that all speakers use. They say something like, I've had the great privilege to share my message on the same stage as Sir Richard Branson and the Dalai Lama at great corporations like GE, Accenture, and Amazon. That's what one of my mentors used to say. Dan Kennedy always used to say, when I was speaking in the arenas with General Colin Powell and General Schwarzkopf and George Bush and Donald Trump, speaking in the arenas with those famous celebrities. And this all helped me to shape my idea of the $1 million positioning statement, which I have now. And, I talk about this stuff a lot. The stuff that you guys, you, the listener, okay, and you, Jonathan, we've been talking about this stuff. This is not the first time I've had this conversation or talked about these concepts, as you can imagine. Right. I speak about this all over the place. I've shared the stage and talked about this on the same stage as Martha Stewart, Dr. Oz, 5 presidents of the United States at Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge, Mercedes-Benz, West Point, NASDAQ, the London Stock Exchange. I've done it all. Now, you see what I did? I told you my version of the $1 million positioning statement. And in order to be a celebrity in the eyes of customers and prospects, you got to have a statement like that. So what's involved in that statement? There's celebrities in that statement. There are very important places. See? Right. So now we've talked about celebrities, very important places. We've talked about speaking. We've talked about TV. We've talked about awards. See what we've done? Right? I've talked about my best-selling books. And people accuse me
of developed a brand,
and people accuse me of not delivering content. People say you don't deliver content. I just have conversations with people and I say stuff. And once I've said it, oh yeah, obviously all those things are great things to do. Well, you know what, dude? If you do all those things, you'll be a celebrity in the eyes of your customers and prospects. It's not obvious, and it's not going to happen unless you continue to deploy and redeploy all those assets over and over constantly on your target market. And when you do that, when you are continuously marketing to a target market with those celebrity style assets, then you're a celebrity entrepreneur and you can charge high rates and have people excited to pay you lots of money. And until you do, you will never be able to charge high rates or have people excited to pay you lots of money. And I don't care what you do. I don't care how famous you are as an Instagram person or on TikTok. You're never going to have people paying you lots of money unless you do those things.
Right. I think today we're getting too lost in I'll just be, if I'm famous on Instagram or TikTok, I'm going to have the validity that I need. And I don't necessarily, especially when you're talking in the entrepreneur's world, I don't think you're getting that effect. Especially, I think with, I'm a millennial. I think millennials and older, I don't think we necessarily respect 100% that authority, if you will, that you're an authority on a subject just because you're on TikTok. I believe you have to have, for long-term success, it's like you said, you've got to have validity across the spectrum of items. Like you said, TV, books, appearances, speaking engagements. And I think our millennials, I think the millennials kind of get, especially the younger millennials, kind of get stuck in that trap. I have 2 kids who are in high school, and I tell them all the time that there's no such thing really as TikTok famous. There's TikTok, I'm okay for right now, but what is it going to be in 10 years when TikTok fades? They have nothing. They have no validity to themselves.
Hey, look, man, I was less than nobody. I was a taxi driver. And I went from being less than nobody to a person who often gets paid $20,000 by clients to come to my events. Okay. Now, I'm not Tony Robbins, but I'm doing pretty good for me. And I made it all happen for myself. I made it all happen myself. I invented all this stuff in my head. You can read about it in my book, Celebrity Entrepreneurship. You can read about it in my Pulitzer Prize nominated book, Wisdom of the Men, which, if you really want to study this thing, that's the book. Get the Audible. If you subscribe to Audible, use one of your credits to get the Audible version of that. I read the Audible. If you've enjoyed my voice, this podcast, you'll love the Audible because it's all about this stuff. How do you really make it happen? There's a lot of people who have a lot of theories about a lot of stuff, but they haven't made millions of dollars doing this stuff and come from being nobody to being a person who's made millions of dollars selling air like I have. And I'm so grateful to be able to have had what I've had and to have become who I've become. I'm so really grateful because I know what it's like to be behind the wheel of a cab and terrified that you're never going to be able to dig yourself out of that ditch. I know what that's like. I did it for 6 freaking years and I would never want to go back. And my whole thing is to help people to be successful because I know unless you become successful in your pursuit of your passion, whatever that may be, whether you're an author, a speaker, a coach, a consultant, advisor, whatever kind of expert you are, and you want to get paid ostensibly for what you know or do for people, if you want that, then you need to be a celebrity or else you're going to be struggling all the time. If you even struggle, you may just not make any money at all. And then you got to go back to whatever you used to do before you saved up enough money to give it a try for a while. You're never going to figure it out unless you do what I tell you right now and what I've been talking about this last hour. You are never going to make it happen. I know. I've done it. I've watched others fail, and the people who do what I tell them succeed.
I love it. Well, we've got Clint Arthur. We've got a question that I like to ask at the very end. I got 2 questions. One is a chef's game that all chefs play together. I always like to ask my guests, but I'm going to ask you one before that one. So 2 questions left in the interview. One is, if you can go back and tell 20-year-old Clint Arthur 3 secrets, what 3 secrets would you tell Clint Arthur?
Okay, because usually it's just, what would you tell 20-year-old Clint Arthur? So the first thing I always would tell a 20-year-old Clint Arthur is becoming really famous is the most important thing. And if you get a break and gets any kind of fame, you need to keep hammering on that. Just don't stop, especially if you're on TV for that stuff. You need to be on TV and stay on TV because that's where all celebrities are. And so that's one, is be on TV and stay on TV. Number 2 is that when you're a celebrity, you can do anything you want. It doesn't matter why you're famous. Once you're famous, you need to maintain that fame and then leverage it into whatever you want to be. If you want to be an actor, you can be an actor. You want to be a singer, you can be a singer. It all comes off that fame. And number 3 is that nothing you do in terms of fame actually changes you. I remember when the first time I was written up in the Wall Street Journal and I was standing on the street corner with the newspaper in my hand on the front page of the newspaper. And I remember feeling no different. Fame doesn't change you, and it shouldn't change you. You are who you are. And the fame isn't going to change anything. It's the process. It's all the things that you do in the process of becoming who you ultimately become. That's what this is all about. That's what changes you, not the fame, the journey.
I love that, man. So I have one last question that chefs always ask, and that is, as chefs, we have all spent at least a little time in the back of a police car, maybe. We always kind of dream of this fantasy world where you are on death row. It's your last meal. You finally snapped. You killed somebody. As chefs, we always say we finally killed that line cook. We're going to death row. What's going to be your last meal?
Very thin crust pepperoni pizza, a dozen oysters on the half shell, and a Ruth Chris tomahawk steak, medium
Yes.
rare,
Yes.
and a bottle of Alexander Valley Cabernet Sauvignon.
That's fantastic.
And a bottle of Italian Ferrarelli sparkling water with nice ice cubes. There you go.
I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, we've had an
Wait. I gotta have olive bread, like olive bread with, you know, some amazing butter, either from Ireland or New Zealand, or a French demi-sel butter, or 5-star butter, depending on what restaurant I'm in. It's very hard to get. It's only at the top restaurants in the world, but you got to have that too. Sorry, thank you. And then
no, that's fantastic.
and then I need a dessert here, and I think that the dessert is going to be mango sorbet off my tree here in October.
Nice. Oh, I would love to have a mango tree. We got our first banana tree. And so we're excited to hopefully have some bananas here soon. So we're trying to get a little. So
how's that for a meal? That was a pretty good meal.
That's amazing. I say you nailed it. So people come on, they're like, I want spaghetti. I'm like, that's all you're gonna want is spaghetti. It's the last hoorah. I love it, man. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us this afternoon. I know it's a busy day. It's a Saturday. I'm just honored that you would spend time with us. Bless us. I'm hoping one of these days I can poke you back and, you know, get some more information and some guidance. I'm definitely looking forward to the book, and maybe I can have you back on and we can discuss your book. And I'm just excited to have had this conversation, this connection, and learn more about how I can up my game and understanding basically that I need to stop being, I don't need to be Bobby Flay. I don't need to be Gordon Ramsay. I need to be Jonathan Boyd and go with what's important to me and what I'm best at. And I'm just super blessed to be here. Thank you so much for being on our show.
Right on, Jonathan.